Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commander Central, episode 57. But before we dive in, recent patron supporter Connor McKenty is going to be getting his wife's Regna and Krav deck deck-teched by us. Unfortunately, there are quite a few people ahead of him, so we will be doing that later this winter, hopefully, probably before the end of the year, as a birthday gift. But until then, we wanted to reach out and say happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Bravo, Chris. Bravo.
That's my wonderful singing voice on air.
You're going to record our theme song going forward now.
Yep. I'm going to rap it, though.
Nice.
But don't try and have me freestyle. It ain't going to work. This is for Victoria. Now, he calls you Tori. I don't quite feel comfortable calling you Tori because that seems like a thing between the two of you.
We haven't met.
Yeah, exactly. So he just wanted to say thank you for the best years. So happy birthday to you, and I actually look forward to digging into this one.
Oh, that's super sweet. And yeah, same here. So from us here at Commander Central, we wish you a happy birthday, and everybody else enjoy episode 57 of Commander Central.
Woo!
Welcome to Commander Central, episode 57, and it is time for Mini Deck Tech Extravaganza 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Pop. Those are my poppers.
That's also a joke nobody under the age of 35 is going to get. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
So, today we're going to do a couple mini deck techs, 3 to be exact. But before we get into that nonsense, any games we played this week worth hitting on?
I'm still working on Dramoka. I tuned it last weekend. Spent about 12 hours over the course of the weekend staring at Tapped Out and watching it refresh after every ad popped up, and that annoyed me. But
feels like you're having a stroke or something.
Right.
When that
I do
happens.
want to switch. I still have my decks updated and Tapped Out for now, but MTG Goldfish, which I did like, but my big problem with them was you couldn't mark the specific version of the card. And like if you've got a deck you're foiling out or something, it's nice. You want to keep track of the exact version. You can now keep track of the exact version on MTG Goldfish
and foils
on their
and
deck
stuff.
builder. Yep, in foils.
Well, I know what I'm doing this weekend then.
And EDH Rec, because EDH Rec doesn't scrape tapped out currently, but they do scrape MTG Goldfish. So anyway, I'm actually just maintaining mine in both because you can import it. You can import it fairly easily over too.
Oh, good.
So I actually put mine in Goldfish just so it's in the stats in EDH Rec. But if you care, you can now update them on MTG Goldfish with exact versions of cards, which Chris really doesn't. I don't think any of his decks, but Alesha maybe. Well, since you're following that out,
I don't keep track of that.
You don't keep track? Okay. I was going to guess you have it written down in a notebook or something.
My deck box. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay. There was nothing too crazy worth touching on in terms of games we played this week necessarily. I tested out a card, and I'll probably go into this a little more detail on the EDH Rec cast because that's where it came up as a card, Manifold Insights, that was in, I think, C16. So actually, Max, I'm going to ask your impression. What did you think of that card? So for those who don't know, Manifold Insights is 3 mana. You take the top 10 cards of your library, and for each opponent, they choose a non-land card from those 10, and you put it in your hand.
The rest go on the bottom in a
The
random
rest go
order.
on the bottom in a random order. So they are going to give you the worst 3 cards of your top 10.
Well, it also didn't help you had Swarm Intelligence out.
That screws
So
it.
you
So when I
copied it.
casted, that screwed it up because I got 2 copies of it. So anything, and I had a Sapphire out and Jace's Sanctum, so it made it cost 1 mana. So anything that nets you 6 cards for 1 mana feels pretty good.
Right.
So because somebody else also just coincidentally enough cast it against us. I don't know if you were in that game. So okay, so being across the table from that, what were your thoughts on that card?
It's interesting because maybe we did it wrong, but I didn't know what my opponents chose for you until essentially we finished.
Okay.
It was hard because the first pack of 10 had like Rift and really good counter spells, and it's like, what do you give you the card that draws you like 3 cards for essentially 1 blue mana because
Right.
you have all these reducers out. Do I just give you Rift because then the game will end
Sure.
because you had like 15
Sure.
Drakes out?
Yeah.
Or do I say, okay, no, let's give you I don't remember what I gave you in the first pack, but then the second pack came around, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you Counterspell, OG Counterspell.
Because you had a Dromoka and you didn't care.
Right.
It can't be
And-
countered, and then your stuff can't be cast on your turn anyway.
And that's literally what my thought process was, because I'm like, okay, my Dromoka wasn't out yet, but I had enough mana because I had Hull the Bandit Lord. I had Hull the Bandit Lord out, and I had enough mana to do that and put like Blackblade Reforge on him, I think. And so I'm like, okay, let's do this. And they're all like, why'd you give him the Counterspell? I said, because he can't counter Dromoka.
Right.
So I'm safe.
Sucks to be you guys.
Right? It was impressive. I think I would like to see it in decks that don't have the reducers or the copiers.
Or just cast it when you don't have Storm Intelligence out and it costs the full 3.
And I think you also got pretty lucky because I think between the 20 cards that got drawn off the top of your deck, there were maybe 4 lands between the 2 piles.
So there was a lot of choices.
There were a ton of choices.
And there were 3 players in the game, or 3 opponents, so I got 3 cards. If it's just me and one person at the game,
That's not great.
that's not great because you're just getting the worst of the 10 cards.
Right.
Now, maybe if you're playing competitive or something and people only win, or you're in a meta where everyone wins via combo, so there's always 3 opponents or you're just dead, maybe then
Right.
you look at it like, well, I'm always going to get 3 cards, but I'm still undecided on it. But if anybody out there has played Manifold Insights and wants to share their opinion on it, let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about it on the EDA Trekcast a little bit this week too.
I'm
Chris,
very
what are your
curious
thoughts?
about it.
Yeah, like I can't tell, and even having cast it once and having somebody cast it against me, just weirdly enough, he happened to have it in his deck. Even having done it, I was like, I still don't know if I just would prefer to just draw 3
Maybe
or something.
Maybe this comes back to what we were talking about last week. It has a really high ceiling
Yep.
and a really low floor.
Right. You can get one crappy card out of that if someone decides to just give you a bad your one drop that you're running just in case you happen to have something on turn 1 to do. Someone gives you that, or they give you that 5th mana rock. Who cares?
I also think it'd be a good card in maybe a 2-color deck. Like in mono blue, especially in your Talarian deck, you're just running essentially cantrips.
Right.
So you're
I
just
don't care
you're-
which
you're-
cantrip you give me; it's all the same.
Right, where maybe like in a Simic deck or an Azorius deck where you can, oh great, now I have to deal with a Path of Exile or a Council's Judgment in that group of 10 cards, along with maybe a Brainstorm or a Jin-Jitaxis or something really super OP.
Right.
It makes the decisions harder not knowing what the deck might do or having 2 colors to worry about because, oh look, they're short on white mana, so I'm going to lean in and give you all the double white cards versus you're playing mono blue. I don't care how many blue pips are on this card. You have every doubler on the field.
There's probably also some politics there a little bit too. Like if you're casting it from behind and there's someone with a great board state, then maybe that person to your right's like, yeah, go ahead, take that Supreme Verdict out of that pile and wipe that dude's board with it. I will absolutely give you that Supreme Verdict. Or I will absolutely give you a Rift because I've got 2 permanents out and that dude's got 17 out. So I wonder if that element plays. If you're playing from behind, I wonder if that element helps.
I don't know if this is a card you want to play from when you're behind.
Right, maybe not.
because when you're behind, it's usually down to 3 of the 4 people in the pot or you and another
Right.
opponent. Like, if it's you and one person, they're not giving you anything that's going to hold
But we've
them.
also had that game too where you're like, man, I need to talk to some of the next 2 turns or we're losing this game.
And this gets you 10 deep.
This gets you 10 deep, and
With the
hopefully one of your opponents then gives you that card you needed to get there. So I'll have to see if that ever happens. Like
Right.
I've only played it that one night, so I'm gonna give it a few more weeks and see what happens.
I actually am testing a new card.
What's that?
Pier's Whim.
Yeah, I just put it in one deck too.
That
you
card
cast
is
it yet?
the boss. Like,
Again, talking like in last week's show about high ceiling versus high floor, you're ramping a land,
any land.
and you're hitting the worst artifact enchantment someone has. So the worst case scenario, I'm going to hit that person's Felwar Stone and someone else's, I don't even know.
Soul Ring and maybe an Eldrazi Monument.
They're burgeoning after they've already entered their hand.
Eldrazi Monument.
But maybe if that's their only artifact, like
That's true.
the worst case scenario is you hit that Felwar Stone and you hit someone else's burgeoning after they've already emptied their hand of lands. That's still pretty good value, and you're ramping any land you want.
Yep.
Here's why I really like it. You can choose an action that is actually impossible for them to resolve. So you can choose foe across the table if there are no artifacts and enchantments, and they still, it just
Right,
fizzles.
yes.
You still get your land, and you don't have to worry about helping your opponents.
Like the worst case scenario for it, for the most part, is
4 mana for a land.
it's a temp with discovery that nobody else takes
Gets.
a tempt.
And I'll take that all day long.
Yeah. Because tempt, you run the risk of everyone going strip mine, strip mine, strip mine,
Which is what I do.
and takes out your 4 best lands. If you get greedy and grab your 4 best lands and everybody just drops their strip mines and you're like, oh, well, I guess these are all in my hand now. And if I play them, I lose them.
The interesting part about Piers Whim, though, if you do pick friend for other people and for your opponents, you all reveal your land at the same time. So you take it out of your deck,
Yep.
put it face down,
And
and then reveal. I found that really interesting. Where tempt, it doesn't do that. You just
No, it goes and it resolves in order of each
Right.
person who
Yep.
accepted the tempt.
Well, if anybody out there wants to try a Piers Whim in their deck or a Manifold Insight in their deck, where could they pick one of those up at, Max?
flipsidegaming.com, and make sure you use promo code CMDR to get 10% off your entire order. They also have sealed product accessories, awesome playmats, and other trading card game stuff
Yeah,
as
they got all
well. If
kinds
that's
of stuff.
if you maybe have a kid that plays Pokemon, they sell that too.
And if you want to reach out to us and let us know what you think of Piers Whim or Manifold Insights, where would you find us, Chris?
Well, you shouldn't reach out anyways. They're both bad cards. But if you want to talk to us,
That's Chris's new thing, is every card is a bad card.
It's going to be a long episode, folks.
you can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. Facebook search us CMDR Central. YouTube search us CMDR Central, and online at cmdrcentral.net.
No, we didn't pay for that.
we didn't
No, it is .com.
And we are also on Patreon by searching CMDR Central. And we have a couple announcements for Patreon
We do
and
indeed.
Twitter. So our new contest for the month of September for Twitter is going to be another mystery from Dana's Collection Adventures.
It is a oversized 6x9 Jester's Cap Arena promo. So it's like a big, ridiculously oversized Jester's Cap that you can, I don't know what, do it. I don't know what you're going to do with it. Frame it and put it on the wall to stare at all your friends,
Because it's creepy art.
threatening to take their best cards from their library and exile them.
We had a guy come in one night. I don't remember what format we were playing.
Frontier.
Was it Frontier? No.
Tiny leaders.
No. But his entire deck was oversized cards.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
Are there enough of them?
There is. He was playing like 4 Black Lotuses. And
Oh,
I don't remember exactly what we were playing, but yeah, like he'd shuffle it up. And I remember there's a Jester's Cap in there. He had the Sarah Angel I'm looking for, but wouldn't get rid of it.
that was like the iconic card from Ice Age at the time, was that Jester's Cap.
Yep.
It's a good card.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the EDH has kind of gotten left behind for the most part, but
There's better offerings.
But it's a great looking card, good art. So that is this week's Twitter giveaway, this month's Twitter giveaway. And what is the hashtag, Max?
CMDR Fall. Sorry, Chris, you lose.
Chris didn't like that because fall is until October.
It's
But it
like the
feels
middle
like
of
fall.
September.
It's starting to feel like fall out now. Its leaves are turning colors, and I have to wear pants to work again. It's no good for anybody. So yeah, that will be our Twitter giveaway. How will someone register to get into that contest?
We will be using that hashtag in all of our episode tweets. So when we launch a new episode every Monday, that hashtag will be used. If you retweet any tweet we use the hashtag in, you get entered.
You're entered. Yep.
So maybe we might start adding it to one of our daily tweets.
Yep.
A week. Maybe that'll be interesting too to see how much more traffic that gains us.
For sure.
So on to Patreon.
Yes.
Patreon. For the contest, so if you become a patron supporter by the end of September, you will be entered in to win what we think is going to be the C14 Obnixilis pre-constructed deck.
Obnixilis of the Black Oath.
Again, we want to thank D20 Gaming here in Eau Claire for helping us out with all of our Patreon giveaways.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Asterisk, disclaimer, we might tell you something different next
That
week.
might possibly change, but I don't think so. And if you are anywhere near Eau Claire, Wisconsin, you can just wander into D20 Gaming anytime and play a game.
After 2 p.m.
But after 2 p.m. But on Tuesday especially, you're probably finding the three of us there for a game like happened this week with new Patreon supporter
Matt.
And do we have any other new supporters? I think we have a couple of Max is going to shout out here.
We do have a couple. I was going to get to that after the other Patreon
all right.
announcement. So our second Patreon announcement, we are going to be implementing a Patreon goal Patreon does these cool things. I think CCO does a couple of them.
Like long term.
Yep. So we are setting a goal. When we finally get to 100 supporters on Patreon, we are going to give away a Sealed from the Vault Angels.
Yep.
And a Sealed from the Vault Transformed. So that means 2 people will be winners. We're not giving them both to a single person.
Yeah, we had problems with that last time when we didn't figure that out.
So that'll be going up on our Patreon site probably before this episode airs.
Yeah.
So we'll probably tweet about it, or had tweet about it by now.
Right.
Time travel sucks.
Yes, it does.
So yeah, when we hit that 100 patron supporter goal and it sticks, I am going to maybe watch it for like a couple weeks because I don't want to hit it and then have 25 of those new people say, we're done.
I think like on Brainstorm Brewery, they said they have to hit their goal and then maintain it for a month or something.
Okay.
So we'll probably do something along those lines. If we hit that 100 supporters and
you stick
maintain
around
it for X amount of time, then those are very nice giveaways.
Yep.
And they are no longer printing from the vault sets. So this might be your only chance to grab one of those.
For free.
For free.
Well, sort of free.
Well, yeah, ish.
Cheaper than you're getting on eBay.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So our new patron supporters for this week are Matthew Birdie. He was the one who came to the shop and played with us. Along with Walker Talton. So thank you, both of you guys, for supporting us on Patreon. You keep the lights on. You keep us doing these awesome giveaways and allow us to do some cool merchandise like that awesome Commander Central playmat that's showing up pretty soon.
Yes, indeed.
Should have showed up by now.
It should have.
Time travel.
It's the flux capacitor, Chris. It's what makes time travel possible.
9 more seasons, Morty. 9 more seasons.
I think originally Rick and Morty was done as like a little spoof thing that Justin Roiland did, where Rick was Doc Brown, wasn't he?
Yes, it was. Essentially, he did it for, you know how The Simpsons started as a short on the Ed Sullivan Show?
No, Tracy Ullman.
Yes, Tracy Ullman. That's essentially what he did for Rick and Morty at like a film fest, and then Adult Swim's like, we want that. And that's why the eyes are still really bad. It's his homage to the original. He hasn't changed the eyes being the asterisk.
I was going to say.
Interesting. Okay. So you'll find that information and more on our new Rick and Morty podcast we're going to be starting up next week.
And last week was the food podcast.
Right.
And now we have a Pokemon Go.
We'll have to see if every show we can find a new
good.
podcast we can do.
Guys, I can't keep editing all these.
That's a lot of work. Okay. Mini Deck Tech Extravaganza. We got 3 of these bad boys we're going to tear into here today.
Yep. And in order to get one of these done, head over to Patreon and look at the $10 reward level. Gets you these awesome mini deck techs. Originally, we were going to do them ahead of a topic, but you all want this so bad.
Yes,
so
we got a backlog again of these that we're just going to knock out 3 of them right now.
So I think that's what we probably are going to do moving forward is we're going to let 2 to 4 queue up, and then
let's do a full show.
We'll do a full show on these.
Yep, for sure. Okay, first deck we're looking at here is from tapped out user Chai Mike from Chicago.
Yes.
Really? All right, there we go. That was easy.
Michael Hampton, I believe, is his full name.
Okay. I believe I sent him a Commander Central pin at one point in the mail.
And I think he won the Merchant Scroll, which I have to mail this weekend.
All right, nice.
Last weekend.
Right.
Time travel.
That I already mailed.
Will be in the mail by now.
So Chai Mike has a Slimefoot deck called Slimefoot Salad Shooter. And the description is it's supposed to make sack saprolings, and kill your opponents.
I like the name Sacrolings.
Sacrolings.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. That's a perfectly appropriate malaprop on my part here. So a few basics real quick on the deck. The TCG mid-cost on average is $280. So that's, for a commander, that's a lot of money. But for a commander deck, that's not a lot of money. That's a budget commander deck. And you can read into that what you want to read into it in terms of commander players. That's a budget commander deck, as sad as it is for our format. The average speed through the deck is 3.47, which is a little, I'm not sure it's quite high. I would say it's the level in which anything beyond that, when I build a deck, I start getting uncomfortable with the CMC. 3.47 is fine. I like to stay sub 3.5. So everyone's nodding. You guys are kind of in the same boat as well. My initial impressions when I just scanned it, I was like, I think it needs a little more draw. I think it needs maybe a little more board wipes. But that's my first thoughts. What were your first thoughts before you really dug into it?
That was weak on removal. That is creature-centered.
Yes.
Because there is other removal.
Yep.
But creature-centered removal is a little weak on. I want to argue the card draw aspect because I really dug into this deck.
Okay.
There are actually a lot of card draw outlets in here that revolve around sacking creatures.
Yes, there were. I took notes on them, but
there's not solid, just straight up.
Yes.
Consistent.
Just draw cards. Yep.
And I do think it's good to have a mix because if you hit that point where you're behind or you haven't kicked off yet, and you're like, I just need to get some gas in hand to get things started. If you're relying on just creature sack outlets for all your draw, like Skull Clamp's a disgusting card. But you need to have things in play for Skull Clamp to do anything. And if you're too reliant on, like I'll mention my Tesa deck that I no longer have together, they kind of function similar to this. I had a lot of sack draw in that Tesa deck. But if I would occasionally hit those points in the game where if I haven't started things going on, that Skull Clamp does me no good, or that I can't remember what the other ones were in that deck. There was a couple of those like sacrifice a creature and draw 2 cards, the black ones. There was one from Ixalan, and there's an older one, and both their names are escaping me currently. But I think it's good to have a few additional options beyond just the stuff that cares about creatures.
I agree.
So, Max, anything from you?
I thought the land base was pretty basic. Like,
it's super heavy on basics, right?
Yep. But you know what? If this is more of like a casual type deck, isn't super hyper competitive, this is the type of deck that I guess I looked at and said, this is what I would play with people I've never played before to judge the competitive level. It's
also a land base I might play if you're like, my friend Dave has 4 mono red decks and they all have Blood Moon and Max of the Moon. And I play Dave every week. Because there's those metas out there like that where like, or my friend he plays back to basics in all his blue decks and he only plays mono blue or something. So that could be the case too. So since we're talking lands, let's look at the land base here right away.
There are 36 of them.
36 lands, which in a 2-color deck, that feels about right.
Appropriate.
But there's 15 of each basic. So we have 15 forests and 15 swamps.
Yeah. And then 6 utility lands.
Yeah. I would say even if you're playing Dave and his Blood Moon deck and his Magus of the Moon deck, I think you could go a little deeper. Command Tower is like under $1. I think Llanowar Waste is under $1.
That's in here.
Oh, it is. Did I miss Llanowar Waste? Okay.
So the utility lands are the duals. So we have High Market, Llanowar Waste, Myriad Landscape, Tainted Wood, Overgrown Tomb, and Woodland Cemetery.
Well, ignore me on Llanowar Waste then. And also Twilight Mire is $6-ish right now. That's a really nice utility land too, because it lets you turn like that 1 colorless mana into double as well. So you can it lets you turn that single mana into a double of a color you might need though. So it not only fixes colors, it can like double fix a color if you need to. It's the Odyssey ones that let you put a colorless into them, but they give you one of each.
The Signet lands.
Yep. And so beyond that land stuff that you guys want to comment on here briefly.
Grim Backwoods.
Yeah, because that fits that sacrifice a creature thing too as well. And it taps for mana, doesn't come into play tapped.
Yep.
It's a mana sink, so if you hit that end of turn where you're like, I've not spent these 5 mana because I had nothing going on, I might as well blow it on a creature at instant speed, end of turn.
Agreed.
Draw a card. And it's cheap. If it's a budget deck, that's a cheap land. The one I thought of was Homeward Path. It's not like a huge deal. Maybe no one plays stealing stuff in your meta or anything. But if they do, this deck is so reliant on Slimefoot being a centerpiece of the deck. You don't want to lose it to a control magic or something.
Agreed.
So I would maybe consider that. There's no land removal lands.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, and again, that's a meta thing. Like if everyone's mana base looks like this in your meta, well, you don't need it, I guess. Like if everyone's playing 15 basics, then that's just what it is. And that's fine too. But if they're not, I mean, Tectonic Edge is pretty cheap. I think Ghost Quarter is $1 or $2. Field of Ruin is like $1 or $2. So yeah, I would get 1 or 2 land removal lands in there maybe as well. Any final land stuff though?
Nope.
How about creatures?
How many were in there? Like 40 of them?
23.
Oh.
Wrong deck.
Wrong deck, sorry.
Future.
So I'm just going to read my notes straight off the cuff. I really despise the Thalids. I do not like the put a fungus counter on or whatever
They're
in order
slow.
to get. Yeah, it's very, very slow. I guess.
Particularly the original Thalids.
Yes, the original ones.
Because there's a couple new ones that were in the Time Spiral block that are much, much better because they had gotten better at making creatures at that point in
Yep,
time.
that's like Deathspur Thalid. I do believe it's like a 1/1 for
and
2
that's not in
mana.
the deck.
Yeah.
And that's the best. That's probably the best Thalid in this deck.
You can remove the fungus counters or spore counters or whatever to make one like your other ones are doing. But sack a creature and give -1/-1 to another creature.
And then it triggers Slimefoot.
Yep.
So like does double duty. When you sacrifice something that Deathspore Thalid, you're getting double value out of it because it's still triggering Slimefoot and you get to put a counter on something else.
Yep. Another one that I was thinking about was Death Bloom Thalid, which came out of, I do believe it's Dominaria. It's a 3/2 for 3. When it dies, you get a 1/1 Sapperling. Well, that's just an aggressive card. You just start attacking away with it. Yep. Worst comes to worst, it's a sack outlet that gives you another creature back.
Yeah. There's some aristocrats kind of stuff in there, like what's the vampire? I just closed the deck out. The 0/1 Blood Artist. For if you're
I was gonna make you try and figure that one out.
I just closed up my window accidentally. But Blood Artist, which works like sacrificing Thalids, you're just hitting everybody for additional life loss and life gain for you. That's a great card in there. Crater Hoof's a kill condition. Like if you've got a bunch of Thalids out, you're just gonna kill someone with a Crater Hoof. Any other ones that jump out at you guys?
I have two that I was looking to put into the deck. I don't know what I would cut for them. The first being Poison Tip Archer. It plays into the aristocrat theme where it just is. It's reach, death touch for 4 mana. It's a 2/3, and then whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses a life. If you're sacking all these Sapperlings, it's just double value with Slimefoot on the field. The other one would be Whisper.
Oh, sure.
The new legend from Dominaria. Sacrifice 2 creatures, bring a creature back from the graveyard to the battlefield. This is a great way to recur. I think you could probably loop a Crater Hoof. So you play Crater Hoof, sack 2 Sapperling, sack it and a couple Sapperlings to bring it back. Boom.
That's what. Stop. You're not supposed to
Max.
do stuff like that.
The other one I was thinking of is Pathbreaker Ibex as kind of a mini Crater Hoof. It's a 3/3 goat. Whenever Pathbreaker Ibex attacks, creatures you control gain trample and +X until end of turn, where X is their greatest power among creatures you control. So Slimefoot or the Ibex itself is going to give your guys +3/+3. I mean, worst case, it's an overrun, but it's on a body, and so I like that as an alternate win condition here as well.
Yep. I also like Yahenni Undying Partisan. His ability, I think it's a her. I'm not sure, judging by name. We're just going to not worry about that right now. But a 2/2 with haste. The ability to sack a creature, give indestructible. And you're playing the package of other things.
Yep.
The Dictate package or the Grave Pack package, which then forces them to sack. And, guess what? When another creature opponent controls dies, you put a counter on Yahenni.
Yeah, and you've got it, like the ability to just do it at will there as well. I like Smothering Abomination a lot, just in general, and I think this is a good deck for it, where you can just throw away Sapperlings at will and draw cards during your upkeep. It's also a 4/4 body that has flying that's pretty efficient as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the flying really helps in this kind of deck where everything is right on the ground.
But there's just so many times you're gonna sack a bunch of those Thalids or Sapperlings to, whether it's Ashen's Altar or to Yahenni or something like that, and you're going to, hit everyone for 10 or 12 damage, and you're going to draw a fistful of cards.
Yep.
So I like that in there a lot. That's a good card. There's a few things I would add. Viscera Seer is a good sack outlet too, but I just like that you need I think it wants 1 or 2 more of those things.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at artifacts here since I mentioned Ashnod's Altar. 5 artifacts in the deck, one of which is, of course, Ashnod's Altar, which is a great card. There's a Golgari Signet, which is a little bit of ramp, as well as Soul Ring and Skull Clamp, which I think Chris mentioned before, and we mentioned as a disgusting sack outlet draw engine.
It is.
The last one I actually quite liked in this deck was Grafted Exoskeleton, because of the way Slimefoot deals its damage. I like that. I mean, that's
true.
And this is a powered down deck. Like you need to have ways to win in a deck that's relatively powered down. I think that's totally fair in this particular deck.
Yeah.
Any other artifact stuff you guys think this deck could use?
I have one, but it's super, super mean. So
What is it?
Smokestack.
Oh, yeah. I
Because
mean,
you're
like,
making so many sapperlings. You can set Smokestack
Sure.
to where you want to be, knowing if you're consistently making, like if you get Milecloth online, dropping 5 sapperlings every turn or 4, set Smokestack at 4. There you go. You're just paying for it every turn with Milecloth triggers.
well, even Ensnaring Bridge or something where you're just going to be sacking those. Who cares if you tap those sapperlings you're making that you're going to sack in 3 seconds anyway, or Skull Clamp or whatever. But that's a whole different. Then you start getting into a whole different play style. But this deck
Right.
does have Grave Betrayal, Grave Pact, and it does have Dictate Erebos. So there's already some stacks elements in it.
I guess one card I'm very surprised I didn't see in here is Eldrazi Monument.
Yeah, because that's also a win condition.
Another
in a token
win
deck like
condition.
this.
Yeah.
When you turn those 10 sapperlings into 20 damage that can get over the top of something else
And are indestructible.
and are indestructible, that changes games.
Yep.
Like
And-
I've lost to a lot of token decks dropping Eldrazi Monument before.
And when you're going to sack one next turn with Dictate on the field, oh,
Right,
look, you
yeah.
just, if you haven't won by then, you're about to.
And it's not a dirt. It's like a $7 card-ish, so it's not nothing. And this
No,
is a
it's
budget
not.
deck.
It's not really super expensive though,
Right,
and it was
that's-
just reprinted in a commander set.
was.
So
There's a lot of enchantments in this deck, 22 to be precise, which actually was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, that does seem kind of high in my opinion.
There's a couple I wanted to make notes about. Blood Funnel. I don't know if Blood Funnel is any good, but I like that you're trying it. I like that Chai Mike is trying it. It's kind of a neat card.
the thing I don't like about Blood Funnel is I'm gonna risk this and say 90% of players do not understand the mechanics of it.
Okay. What do you think they screw up?
Please explain it to me because I don't
So
understand
first of all, we
this
should read the
card.
card. It's a relatively
This is
obscure card.
very hard to explain because I actually had to have an L3 explain it to me.
So let me read the card briefly here, since it is kind of an obscure thing. Blood Funnel is an enchantment for 2 mana, so it's a black and a colorless out of the original Ravnica set. Non-creature spells you play cost 2 less to play. That's probably eroded to cast. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, counter that spell unless you sacrifice a creature. So where did you run into that you need to judge for?
This was actually something I'm not supposed to discuss.
Okay.
Why I needed a judge for this.
All right, judge question. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I like the card. I just don't know if saving a couple mana is worth it to lose. But I guess if you have the Pact out and it's Sapperling, it's kind of a sack outlet, I guess.
Yep.
I like seeing cards like that in decks, so I am on board with it, even if I don't entirely know how well it's going to work. Same thing with Gate to Phyrexia, because you are in colors that can deal with artifacts. And in this case, Gate to Phyrexia, again, for those that don't know, because it's a really obscure card out of Antiquities.
It is.
Gate to Phyrexia is a 2 black mana enchantment. Sacrifice a creature, destroy target artifact. Activate this ability only during your upkeep and only once each turn. So during your upkeep, you can sacrifice a creature to destroy an artifact, which, first of all, in black,
Great.
there's very few ways to deal with artifacts. You're making Sapperling, so basically every turn you can sacrifice a Sapperling to destroy their best artifact. Like, that's really pretty good in general. If you've got a Grave Pact out or Dictate to Erebos, it's that much better. So yeah, I like that card being in this deck.
Yeah.
Any other ones you guys want to touch on here?
I'm not a fan of Mind Slash. I think
So Mind Slash again is one that probably doesn't see a ton of play.
right. So it's 1 black for an enchantment, and you can pay a black and sacrifice a creature. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a card from it. They discard that card. Only do it at sorcery speed.
So on your turn, now here's why I think. See, it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other. If you've got Mind Slash out and you've got 5 tokens and maybe nothing else to do that turn, you just empty someone's hand.
Yeah.
And that's really, really good. But there's also going to be plenty of times where you need your mana for something else. Okay, you're going to sacrifice Sapperling to hit 1 or 2 cards, and you still have 2 opponents who aren't touched. There's times it's going to be backbreaking, and there's times it's just not going to be great. And I'm talking about last week's show with the floor and the ceiling thing. I want my card to always be effective. So for me, I don't love it either.
I have 2 more that I was hoping to see in this deck. The first being Black Market. for how much you're sacrificing stuff, getting all that mana to use later.
To activate Slimefoot's abilities.
Or Mind Slash or something else comes in handy. The other one, seeing that we're making all these tokens, and there's 23 creatures already, would be Passive Discovery out of Ixalan.
Yeah.
Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, it explores. So that's tokens. That's
so much value in this deck.
Yes.
So it's just going to help you filter through. When you have enough lands and you don't need any more, you can start pitching them to the graveyard.
No, they go to your hand.
They go to your hand. But the stuff you might want in your graveyard, there's not a lot of flashback in this deck, but you never know.
This deck, it will be disgusting in this deck.
Yeah.
The one I thought I might mention, I do like Evolutionary Leap and Vampiric Rites. They're both like real cheap enchantments to let you spend a mana to sack a thing to either draw a card or find one of your creatures. I like them both. But because of all the sacrifice stuff, I think Death Reap Ritual will be really, really good in this deck. I like it in general, but in this deck, like you could easily, in a 4-player game, be drawing a card on every player's turn.
Yes, especially seeing how I'm going to label this deck as a theme of sacrifice.
It seems like it is.
Yep.
So I think Death Reap Ritual will be really, really good in here. I like the card a lot, but like this is kind of a perfect deck for it.
Yep.
And it's also a cheap card.
Another cheap card that I see in every token deck I don't see in this one, Beastmaster Ascension.
Yeah, it's not a way to win.
That would be probably really good in the Pernicious Deed spot.
Agreed. That was another one that kind of caught me off guard. Granted, a lot of your heavy hitters are high CMC, so you're going to just blow up everything else. But I think it takes you off of everything you were originally trying to do.
Which are all the tokens that you want to sacrifice to do things with.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, your heavy hitters are high enough to where you're not going to kill them, but casting this, knowing that you have a Crater Hoof in your hand and you just killed all your tokens, isn't very good.
I have another one that I was going to suggest, and I suggested this like 2 weeks ago, I think. Phyrexian Reclamation. I'm slowly falling in love with this card.
And again, here's a deck where you're making a bunch of tokens that you're going to sacrifice anyway. Why not bring a creature back to your hand?
Yeah.
Like Crater Hoof.
You
sack it with Whisper. There we go. We found out the loop.
The one other one I have here, this is actually a relatively expensive card. It's like $20 now, is Wound Reflection. It's also expensive to cast. I think it's 5 and a black. But there's going to be enough times where you're like, oh, I can only sacrifice 9 Saprolings this turn to do 9 damage to everybody, but Wound Reflection is going to essentially doubles that. So like there's times that card will be what lets you kill the board, whereas otherwise you're going to take 3 turns to get enough Saprolings to do the 20 damage, and essentially he's going to speed you up significantly faster to get there. But it's also, like I said, it's a $20 card, and it's not nothing to cast either. It's 6 mana, so I get why it's not in the deck, but it would be something that I would at least look at long term, maybe adding. All right, that is the enchantments in this deck that is not an Enchantress deck, but is running 22 of them anyway, because they're all useful.
They are all useful.
Sorceries.
7 of them.
And they all, for the most part, are doing a thing. I mean, I get why they're here.
They get you lands or they make Saprolings. That's really what they're doing.
There's a couple small changes. Rampant Growth is in here. Nature's Lore or Farseek does the same thing and gets the land untapped. For the most part, I would run one of those two. Probably Farseek, because it's going to get you a swamp untapped, whereas Nature's Lore is going to just get you I guess it depends what you want more, but the fact that you can get it untapped is worth not being able to get both, I think.
Farseek still puts it in tapped, but it still gets you the swamp. It gets you that Overgrown Tomb.
Does it? Okay, thinking, okay. I thought I got it.
It's a non-forest tapped. But it gets you your dual. So
Sure.
your Overgrown Tomb, if you ever put a Bayou in this deck.
If they ever actually print the Cycling ones or the
or the Battle
or the ones
Lands.
or the Battlelands, yeah.
Which is my prediction for Evnica.
Ooh.
Instead of Shocklands, the Fetchable Battlelands that are enemy colors.
That'd be cool.
I saw actually a cool one the other day. Someone suggested a land that it could tap for a colorless, or it can tap for the appropriate color, black, the guild colors, if you control a multicolor, if you use the mana to cast a multicolored spell.
They've printed stuff like that before.
Well, there's one called something of the Parans from the original Ravnica set that works kind of like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was someone's suggestion for a new cycle. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. Any other suggestions from sorceries?
Yes.
What's that?
That's another one I suggested like 2 weeks ago. It's a tutor called Diabolic Intent.
Sacrifice creature.
Sacrifice creature, go for whatever.
And in this deck, it's almost a better demonic tutor because you want to sacrifice stuff.
And it's cheap. It follows the theme of this deck not being very expensive.
I had two more. That are part of my board, my card draw suggestions. Harmonize, of course, would be good because it just draws you 3 and you don't care about anything else. I think this deck needs a little bit of that. But also, Shamanic Revelation is very often going to draw you, a dozen cards. And maybe you don't ever hit the Ferocious, but if you hit Ferocious on 1 or 2 things because your Creator Hoof's out or whatever, that's a bonus. But if you don't, you don't care.
Yep. I guess along the lines of Shamanic, probably run a Decree of Pain in there too.
Maybe. Well, there's no board wipes in this deck either, really. And Decree always feels like it's greedy.
Yeah,
but it's so good.
Even if you have, let's say you have 10 Saplings out, and your opponents each have like 2 5/5 flyers that you can do nothing about,
and you're going to lose to those flyers.
Yeah, why not just draw all the cards off of your Saplings anyways? Yeah,
right, and deal damage with Slimefoot while you're doing it. Yeah, I love Decree of Pain. I know it's a greedy card, but sometimes you got to be greedy. Nothing wrong with being greedy once in a while. Okay, instance. We have 3 good removal spells here and some token interaction like Second Harvest. Anything in instance you guys want to see added?
Probably some sort of enchantment removal.
Yeah, but particularly because this deck runs so many enchantments, so I wonder if this is a meta that's heavy on enchantments. Corrosive Grip hits it. Putrefy.
Golgari Charm would be nice.
I would like more of the cheaper ones, like your
Sure.
Deglamor, that kind of stuff. Just because as playing tokens, there is so much stuff out there that can just say no tokens.
Well, anyone who's running a Pillow Fort card, you're just screwed.
Yep.
If Max is playing Dromoka, he can pay the 2 mana to swing in with Dromoka on a Propaganda. If you're counting on your Crater Hoof getting you a kill here, you can't afford to pay 42 mana to swing in. I think something that has some flex to hit in a chat. I think you need a couple more maybe removal spells.
Yeah, because you got Corrosive Grip and Beast Within, I guess, but I think I'd rather have the 2 smaller ones that are cheaper and they tuck them.
Yep.
They can't really have a recursion.
Beast Within is nice because it does hit any target. So I have a touch on pulling that, but like Max said, Golgari Charm is good. It can be a low-level sweeper. It can hit an enchantment, and it can save your board state. It can save little saplings if you need to save them from like an exile effect or a rift or something when you have no sack outlet on board. That's fairly useful as well. So my final, after looking at the deck more closely, I think my initial, I think it needs a little more draw. I think you can diversify the land base a little bit without spending much money, and it's not going to hurt whatever you're trying to do. And I do like to create pain or at least one board wipe. There should be. I think you need to have one board wipe in most of your decks because if you fall behind, that's how you catch up with one spell.
Yep.
Or you at least get things even again. How about you guys?
I agree 100% with that. Looking it over, I think I honestly would cut back on some of the enchantments and go for more cards that are gonna get you ahead in the game farther than the enchantments are actually gonna do.
And at some point, those enchantments that require you to invest a creature and a mana to draw one card, you only need so many of those because they become redundant. If you have too many of them in play, you can only use one ability. So I mean, it's good to have redundancy, but you don't want to be in a position where you have 3 of those out and you can only use one. All right. Next, we have Henry Stukenberg.
Good deck. We're done.
That's it. Henry, we're done. I made the comment on Twitter the other day because he also got mentioned on the Brothers War podcast.
Okay.
Because he plays in the same shop as those guys do.
Oh, okay.
So they mentioned him for something with the Precon thing. And we've mentioned him on this before because I talked to Henry and he's a supporter and he sends us stuff on Twitter. And so the EDH Rec cast, because he's used to be an editor at EDH Rec, so he gets mentioned there. I'm like, for a guy who's not actually on a podcast, lots of podcasts mention this dude's name. So this is his Varina the Lich Queen deck. And I didn't want to not building this deck because other people decided to recognize how useful Varina was and built their own deck in our shop after lulling me into thinking they weren't going to.
Blasphemy.
But so here's the problem with this deck. Well, I'll give you the basics on it, and then I'll tell you the problem I had with the deck.
And same here.
Okay, so the deck is called Haunted Honeymoon, which first of all is great. The description is Varina on her honeymoon. The TCG mid cost on this deck is $1,500, which is not I mean, I don't want to say it's like an average cost for a deck, but that's not on the high end for an EDH deck, sadly enough. Like
This also isn't Timmy's first EDH deck.
It is not. This is a deck built by a guy who builds EDH decks.
Okay, let's just look at it this way. Let's cut the Underground Sea and the Scrubland, and we're down to like a $500
Sure.
deck.
That's a big chunk of it. Is
Yes.
that he's got the ABUR duels in there.
Yep.
Average CMC is 3.25.
Dana likes that.
I like that. It's pretty tight. And my initial impressions are it's just a pretty tight deck in general.
That is exactly what I said looking at this the other day, was this is super tight. Also, we all kind of helped him build this in Slack.
So he's in both the EDH Rec Slack and the Commander Central Slack, and he's a knowledgeable guy anyway.
Right.
So like he, in addition to just knowing how to build a deck and having built a lot of decks over the years, he also had a pretty good brain trust of people to bounce ideas off from. So it's been a challenge. It was a challenging deck to a degree to do much tech work on because it's already been deck teched.
Yes.
But we will do that. We will do it anyway because that's the kind of podcast hosts we are. So let's look at lands first. I think he's running a pretty solid amount there.
I don't even have anything to say about the land base.
I did have a couple I was going to mention. He's got 37 lands, 3-color deck. That's actually probably roughly what I would be having in a deck. A couple ones I would say Cabal Coffers. I do not like in a 3-color deck.
Especially this style that he's
yes.
playing it.
You basically need to have an Urborg in play or it's just a void. It's not even like it taps for a colorless or something. If you don't have Urborg out, I would say 3/4 of the time, if not more, you just can't tap it for mana, period. It's just a land drop that you've made that's taken a card from your hand that's done nothing. Now, maybe he gets lucky and everyone he knows plays an Urborg in their deck and they're helping him out. That could be the case. But like, if this was me, this would screw me a bunch of times.
I'd rather have Shrine in Nykthos. I don't think that's in here from the looks of it.
Because almost all his zombies are black.
Yeah. I mean, so any permanents that are out, so he's going to get that ability to actually go off, but it still taps for mana.
It still taps for mana no matter what. Yeah, usually you don't want Nykthos in a 3-color deck, usually, but this is a deck where almost all of the permanents are black. Or a good chunk anyway. So, I agree with Nykthos there.
I actually have one. I don't like Homeward Path in this deck.
Why is that?
Because here's my thought process. If you're in a 4-player pod and you're the only person playing a zombie deck or even Varina, what is the opponent taking Varina really going to do with Varina? They're taking
away from you though and taking away a draw engine. Even if they can't use it, I think it's worth taking it away from you.
It is, but you also have another X amount of zombies already on the field from you abusing Varina the last 4 or 5
There's also
turns.
a few sack outlets he's got in here as well.
Right. I think it's just a safety blanket.
Sure.
I think it could be cut for something else. I get why. I mean, it's just a good card, but I'm looking at the process of, okay, if I somehow take it with Brago, I don't run any zombies in Brago. That the most it's going to do to me is let me draw and discard a card.
Yeah. And gain 1 life.
Maybe
and
I
exile
could start
2 cards from your graveyard to create a 2/2 zombie.
I don't know what I would do that for, but like I said, it's a good card. I just think it might be just a safety blanket, and it could probably be used for something else.
I think we say this in every 3-color deck, but like Mana Confluence and City of Brass in a 3-color deck are so good. However, this is a deck where your commander gains you life, so they're even safer.
Right.
Run them. Like Reflecting Pool sometimes cannot get you the mana you want. City of Brass always gets you that mana, and you're going to gain enough life off your commander that you don't care even if you don't gain life usually. But this deck definitely doesn't care about the life loss you're going to get from Mana Confluence or City of Brass. So I would run those for sure in here. I also think Volrath Stronghold would be good, but it's also like a $50 card now.
I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I was going to say that as well.
And he's kind of running the budget version of that lets you just bring zombies back to the top of your library.
The Unholy Grotto.
Which is Unholy Grotto, which gets you there as well. Maybe you don't need redundancy. I think looking at it, my thought was if I had a Volrath Stronghold sitting in my binder I'm not using, I would put it in the deck. And if I didn't, I don't know if I would go spend $50 on one. Creatures.
24.
They're not all zombies, however.
No.
So let's hit those guys first, because that's where a few of my bones of contention here are. The first one is Ulamog. I understand why he's running Ulamog, because we talked about this, and it's a way, if it gets milled, to shuffle your library back in, and I get that. However, if you don't do that with it, then you're trying to hard cast it in a deck that doesn't have a ton of ramp. And
I honestly think the only reason it's in here,
I think that's why it's in here.
you just discard off
for the
Varina
shuffle.
and shuffle all your whole graveyard back in.
But like if you don't have it in your hand to discard and you wind up with it trying to hardcast, I just don't love it. And maybe you just want to be like full speed ahead with this deck and be like, if you mill yourself and you haven't won the game, maybe it's time to just play a new game. Like if you get that far down. No, I get it's not just about saving the game. It's about getting the cards back into your library to do things with again. But I don't know. I just kind of, when I was building it, we had this conversation about it, and I get why he's putting in the deck. But when I was putting mine together, I just kept thinking, I just don't want to have, I just want to just barrel ahead full speed and hope you either hit you as hard as possible or not. And that's just what it is.
It's one of those cards where you definitely don't want it in your opening hand.
Correct.
And if you don't find it off of Varina, then you're kind of hosed.
Yeah. So that was my only thought. But there's also probably going to be games where he has that and he shuffles his library back in 3 or 4 times and then draws it again and pitches it again and shuffles it back. And I get it. So that's definitely probably a play style thing. The other one, I don't like Gisa in here, really. Ghoul Color Gisa. I feel like, number one, she's in a zombie. She doesn't proc that ability, which is fine. But she also doesn't get benefits off his zombie masters. She takes a full turn to do anything, so you're just going to cast her and hope she sticks around long enough to do a thing. I'd rather just have something like a Gravecrawler that I know I can recur. And
I have a exactly 5 mana creature that should be in here in place of her.
What's that?
That is called the Scarab God.
Yes.
Sure. And if you're running a non-creature, Scarab God will win you a game. If you play Scarab God in this deck plenty of times and you've got 14 zombies in play, it wheels back around and no one's dealt with it, they've just lost.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he always comes back unless he gets exiled.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great point. That Scarab God is going to win way more games than Gisa ever will at the same exact CMC.
And it's graveyard hate against your opponents.
Yeah. But even if you never use anything but the damage ability of it's
upkeep,
better.
they lose X life equal the number of zombies that you control and you scry X cards or whatever. Yeah.
Like that alone is better than Gisa, I think.
Yeah.
Not to mention he's like a 5/5 for 5 too, so he's a body that can really deal damage as well.
I think Josu Vess, if you kick Josu Vess, it's a monster. If you don't, it's not great.
No.
It's got menace.
It does.
It's a 4/5.
It's a 4/5 minute. I feel, but yeah, I don't know. It feels a little underwhelming to me for some reason.
So when Urborg's out and Cabal Coffers is out with it, and
that for sure, right? I guess
we're talking YOLO ceiling.
Sure. No, that's definitely true. I'll say it again. I said it once. Get a Gravecrawler in here, Henry. Get a Gravecrawler, Henry.
I think my favorite creature out of all these, because all these are basic zombie creatures, is one that's actually not a zombie.
Okay.
And is the Archfiend of Ifnir.
Oh, that card is so good in this deck.
I know. I just, out of all the cards, I read this and I'm like, oh no.
What's your read Archfiend for people that don't remember?
Okay, so Archfiend Ifnir is a 5/4 demon for 5 mana, 3 colorless, 2 black, flying. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. If
that's out and you swing with your commander,
and you draw 3,
it's Plague Wind.
Yep.
So you just killed everyone, or in Garuk's Wake, you've killed everyone else's board while you're drawing a fistful of cards. I mean, it's disgusting. This deck is disgusting.
And it has cycling itself. So
if
worse comes to worse and you have to cycle it, you have to cycle it.
Yeah. Oh, this is a perfect deck for that card.
I'm not a fan of Champion of Wits.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy.
In EDH, I don't like it because for Champion of Wits is 2 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power. If you do, discard 2 cards. So first off, if you have to hard cast it, you're not netting anything.
Right.
Nope. All it is just filtering.
I get it. You're going to use it for the Eternalize, which is 5 and 2 blue. It comes back as a zombie token, and now you're drawing 4 and discarding 2. My opinion on this is you're already drawing so much with Varina. This seems underwhelming to me. Either way, whether you Eternalize it or not.
Well, here's what I would replace that with. And I mentioned this on last week's show. I know it seems like it's really dangerous. Graveborn Muse.
Yeah.
Now here's the problem. If you've got 15 zombies in play and you're at 14 life, you're screwed. However, you're not going to play Graveborn Muse unless you're in a position where it's not going to kill you. And here's the thing. Your commander just gains that life back. If you start the turn with 9 zombies in play, you're going to lose 9 life and draw 9 cards. You're going to swing with your commander and immediately gain that life back. So it's one thing if your commander didn't have lifelink. If this was a Scarab God zombie deck, I'd be like, that is way too risky. I would not run it. But this is a deck where the way it's worded, you lose life for those zombies to draw cards and you gain it back when they attack.
That's true.
Like, I kind of feel like, in addition, it feels like a super baller move to be like, whatever, I'm losing 14 life. I'm drawing all these cards, and I'm going to gain it all back right away. It just feels like you're kind of talking about YOLO.
Yes.
That's a YOLO card.
Dana, this is why you're reckless with your life
I guess,
total.
right? I guess. That's very, very true. But anyway, I like that. I like that idea. So that's me. Any more creature stuff before we move on?
Nah.
Enchantments. I like them all. I think Necromancer's Covenant is probably only okay because it is 6 mana. I guess it gives your zombies lifelink, which is useful for that Graveborn Muse you're going to be running. But I think it's people have been waiting for an Esper Zombie Commander for 12 years for this card, I think. Yeah, I feel like you got to run it.
So I'm going to mention a card that I mentioned earlier and I mentioned last week. Phyrexian Reclamation.
Again, you're going to have a bunch of stuff in your graveyard.
Yeah, let's just return it.
And there's a bunch of zombies that you can reincarnate. Hey, Gravecrawler, when you get one of those Gravecrawlers, it seems like a good card to sacrifice to this.
I actually have one as well. Graph Harvest. It's a 1-drop for a black, and it gives your zombies menace.
Yeah.
It's just evasion.
It's almost like a second, it's not reconnaissance, but like it's a reconnaissance-like effect for 1 mana that makes it much easier to just blindly swing with your zombies to get those cards.
Yep.
Without worrying as much about losing things.
Yeah. You can also pay for and exile a card from your graveyard to make a 2/2 zombie, but I don't think you're going to be doing that with this card. You're just using it for menace.
Like if you wind up pitching some lands to Varina later on in the game, you're like, I might as well get out of my graveyard. I have a mana sink there.
You have to do creatures with
Is it just creatures?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Nope, but I get what you're saying. There is a card in this deck that does that, though. I can't find it, though. Because I'm not used to deck stats, okay?
Yeah,
I'm used
sure.
to
I know,
tapped out.
it is completely different.
How about artifacts? Alhammar's Archive. This came last week as well. Max wants to mention this one. So, okay.
I don't like it. Cut it. Get it out of here.
Why is that?
Because you're going to deck yourself because it's not a May.
It isn't a May effect. You're absolutely right.
So if you swing, you have 10 cards left in your library and you swing with 5 zombies.
That's it.
Or you have 9 cards left in your library and you swing with 5 zombies. You just lost the game.
So here's my so we mentioned how it double stacks because she gains life and draws cards, and it does both those things. This is the kind of card that I would say after playing the deck for 3 months and decking yourself twice, you're like, I got to pull it. but until that happens, Chris is with me here. YOLO.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would YOLO that card all day.
And it's 5 mana. That seems a lot in...
Well, here's the example I came up with. When I first built my Taste deck, I put Dark Prophecy in there, which whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card and you lose a life. And like that's a deck built around me killing a bunch of my own creatures every single turn. Kind of
Reckless with his life total.
Right. Well, like you would want to run it in that Slimefoot deck we just talked about because you were just going to kill yourself. I knew I was going to kill myself in that Taste deck, and I knew I was going to take Dark Prophecy out eventually. But I'm like, I want to play it and I want to draw a gazillion cards, and I'm going to die a few times, and then I'll pull it out. But like,
just look at all the other players you're playing with.
Yes.
A fistful of cards and be like, what are you guys doing wrong? I don't know.
So it eventually came out, and I knew it was going to eventually come out. And I feel like this is maybe that. Like maybe you just go on, you know, this is coming to come out in December, but until then, we're going to see some stupid stuff happen. So
Fair enough.
I hear what you're saying, Max, but I feel like it's one that you just leave in to just like see some dumb games.
And I've been through that phase already. I think that's why I instantly just go to this. You're going to end up doing that. So just do it now. Why wait the 2 months?
First of all, I like the fact that someone's running Library of Ling.
I know. I've been trying to slot this in a deck for so many years and I could never find one.
It makes so much sense here. So for those who don't know, it's a 1-drop artifact, and it says whenever you discard a card, you may instead put that card on the top of your library.
Yep.
Oh.
So now you're missing the other clause on it of no maximum hand size.
So it's like a Reliquary Tower, which is not good.
No, it's not.
Overrated. But this gives you that effect, which is useful. That's always useful. But this is a deck where when you're discarding 3 or 4 cards a turn, you're like, oh, I don't want to pitch this, Living Death or whatever wipe you have. You can just put it back on top of your library.
Yeah, especially if like the rest of your cards in your hand, you're just like, oh, I need all of these in my hand. What do I get rid of? And you're just like, well, I really don't care. It's going right back up on top.
And also, if you're getting to that point where you've drawn a ton of cards with Alchemist's Archive, then you just discard them back to your library, so you can never have to hit that point too.
Right.
Safety blanket.
I just love this card in this deck. I think it's just a cool card to see ran. Period. I love it in this deck. I am all on board. Library of Lang here. Any additions, you guys?
There's one that I was thinking about taking out, and that's Ashnod's Altar. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't really see a reason to have it.
I think there's a sorcery, Damnable Pact, that's a draw spell.
Okay.
And I think like in the dream scenario, after you've killed one person with 25 zombies, you just sack them all and then Damnable Pact someone else to death.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. I don't know if it's going to actually occur.
Yeah, because I don't really see a reason to have a sack outlet when you don't really have anything that's backing it up.
Sure. And then I guess you can dump a couple of your extra zombies to maybe cast that Ulamog maybe. Ashnod's Altar is a great card.
It is. I
don't know if there's enough things in this deck that care about it. It's not bad, but I just don't know if enough stuff cares about it. So I see what you're saying.
Put a Sensei's Divining Top in there.
My one suggestion was maybe Dolmen Gate, which creatures take no damage during combat. Because it's only 2 mana. And then, again, you can just swing recklessly. You're like, oh, I don't care. You have 15 blockers. So what? I'm swinging my stuff anyway. And drawing all the cards.
Yep.
And it makes, even if you're swinging with Varina, though, like that turn 4 play or something where your commander came out and you're like, well, everyone has 1 blocker, but I want to get at least 1 draw off her. Well, if Dolmen Gate's out, it gets you that those couple early swings as well when normally they'd have blockers out. So.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for Ashnod's Altar, you could also put in Swiftfoot Boots.
Sure, yeah.
Same mana cost, so.
Or Whisper Silk to also have Varina to be protected, and she can get in to draw you the card every time. So, Ultra isn't bad, and what I would wager happens is if we check this deck in 3 months, I would bet Ultra isn't in there because he's found out that there was enough times when he just didn't have all the pieces in play or just, blindly sacrificing stuff just didn't do enough.
Okay.
So that's what I would bet we're going to see. How about sorceries?
It's your basic Esper package. It's all removal and draw.
Yeah. And it's mostly the cards I would run in this deck as well.
Right.
I just find it weird that this deck is running more black card draw over blue card draw.
It does have life gain, so it offsets it a little bit off his commander. And then the black stuff is generally more efficient just because it's black. So you lose life, but you pay 1 or 2 less mana than the blue stuff for the most part. So I'm going to guess that's what the thought process is.
This is my theory on this is Ambition's cost versus Concentrate. Both draw 3 cards for 4 mana. Ambition's costs you 3 life, whereas Concentrate costs you nothing.
Right.
I mean, that kind of stuff is
it's double blue.
It is double blue, but I don't know. Sure. That's what I was curious about. I'm like looking at that. I'm like, you can do the same thing for no life,
right.
Which the life could come up at some point. You never know.
The one I kind of liked here, and this is maybe a little bit of a YOLO card as well, was Minions Murmurs, where you draw a card and lose life for each creature you control.
I would put that in place of Army of the Damned.
Yeah, I mean, again, and maybe this is a deck I talked about having to play it a few times to find that balance, because maybe you just find you have so much draw off Varina and the other cards you don't need it, but there's going to be times where, man, Minions Murmurs is going to draw you 7 or 8 cards, and again, if you have Varina out, you're going to gain that life all back because it's based on number of creatures. It's kind of like the same thing as Graveborn Muse, where it resets itself. It's a dangerous card in decks that don't have life gain.
Right.
Your commander has life gain.
It also plays into the fact that you could Minions Murmurs, then attack, and now you have 7 more cards to discard versus the 7 you just drew off of Varina.
Yeah. So I'd like that in the deck as well. That's a good point though about the blue card draw. I'll have to ask him about it.
That's what I'm curious
give
about.
Us some feedback in Slack, and we can maybe mention that next week. So after the show airs, actually, Henry's an easy one to hit up because he's somebody we chat with. So we'll see what he says. Anything else? Do we hit instants?
Not yet. That's the next thing on the docket.
What do we got?
10 of them.
Basic.
And it's just the best of the best in terms of removal.
Exile. I love it.
Anguish Unmaking. Path to Exile.
He exiles himself with the bathroom break. I mean,
yeah. One counterspell, which is odd. Swan Song.
I think it's just a value counterspell. I suppose
is.
if
I
a
mean-
board wipe you have it in your hand by chance and a board
Yeah.
wipe comes out and you pretty much have the game in lock and you're just like, well, I'll counter that and just kill you next turn then.
It's one of the best counterspells in EDH.
Yeah.
I mean, just
At
it
least,
is.
yeah.
It is. You Force of Will, Mana Drain, maybe Swan Song's third. Original counterspell, maybe, but like Swan Song's in the conversation after those big 2 or 3. So
Agreed.
I get it. It feels weird to me to run one counterspell. I feel like you want to run a couple or you want to run none. One feels strange, but like that's just me.
I think it's a key like protection type of card is what it is. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. It's not really hurting you if it's not in your hand.
Yeah, I don't see this deck being afraid of creatures. I think it's more afraid of the instants and sorceries and the occasional enchantment that kills all your tokens.
Short of someone dropping a Massacre Worm, where your all your stuff dies and you get blown up. Yeah, you don't care about creatures in this deck.
Nope.
Well, final thoughts on Varina's Haunted Honeymoon.
Who's she getting married to?
That's the question.
Ludwig.
It looks like an iMac on the art. She's marrying her computer.
It's like from Black Mirror. You just
Right, yeah, yeah.
No, I really like the deck as it is.
I like Varina as a commander too, and I like the deck. A lot of the changes we mentioned were kind of like personal, like I prefer this card, but I get this card.
Yep.
So we'll have to see what Henry thinks about some of our feedback. But
Use tapped out next time.
yes, right.
oh no, EDH Rec doesn't scrape.
Doesn't scrape. I guarantee that's why he's using it, because it doesn't get scraped. All right, well, what's next, Max?
We have a deck from Dan Kraus called Attack.
I like that name. At first, I was like, "Oh, why is it called Attack?" And then I read the name and who his commander was. Who's his commander?
Najeela, the Blade Blossom from Battle Bond. So this is the 2 and a red human warrior. Whenever a warrior attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking. And then you can play Wooburg to untap all attacking creatures. They gain trample, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. After that, there is an additional combat step.
However, in Dan's description, he wrote he's looking to abuse attack triggers, obviously, hence the name Attack. But he also wrote he's trying to stay away from infinite combos in the deck. There are 2 of them technically. He said he won't use them. He doesn't use them.
At some point, in my opinion, I don't like doing infinite combos too. A couple of my decks have them built in. But there comes a point during the game when you just have to use it to finish the game.
Right.
Although I think this particular deck, you probably don't need it, because it's just going to hit that point where you're going to make this pile of tokens, swing, get a second attack step.
Yep.
And that's probably going to be enough to kill people.
Right. I mean, so the TCG mid-cost on this deck is $219. That's cheap.
That's very cheap.
The average CMC is 3.59, so just a little bit above where Dana likes to sit comfortably. My initial impression was it's not Warrior Tribal.
Yes.
I really liked that because that's what you kind of expect when you see the Najeela decks is full throttle into that just because it's easy. I also noticed there's no Druid's Repository to do that infinite combat step loop.
Yeah, the closest thing that there is for one is Cripple with Rights, because you can tap the tokens you make to make enough mana to get your Wooburg to get an extra attack step and do that. So Rights
do
is
that
there.
repeatedly.
Earthcraft is a little bit easier to do that with, but he's only running Cripple with Rights. So, and then that's a good value card, even if you're not using the infinite combo. It's a good value
And
card.
he's also playing it as 5 colors, so Crypto Lights is just kind of an auto include.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's look at the land base first here. What are you guys' thoughts on the land base?
There are not enough.
It's running how many lands?
36.
36 for a 5-color deck, essentially. I guess you can cast your commander and start getting things, but that with a relatively high CMC, that's a little lighter than I would like.
When I was playing my Sliver combos, my highest casting cost card was my commander in Sliver Queen at 5 mana and Wooburg. I was still running almost 39 lands in that deck.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably be at 38 in this deck. I would guess I would be roughly at looking at how it is.
I agree. I think the land count should be at the 37 to 39 range. I also seen that this is a budget deck. I understand why a lot of these come in tapped, but even just putting 10 shocks in here, I mean, I know that ups the value by a couple $100, but that alone would help speed the mana base up quite a bit versus all these coming to tap tri-lands or dual
If this
lands.
is a deck like you're going to keep long term, this is the kind of thing where once a month you pick up a shock land.
Yep.
I'm going to set aside $3 a week. and buy a shock until I have all 10 of them in the deck. And it might take me 2 years, but every time you add a new one and take out a guild gate, this deck is going to flow better. Particularly because your commander has lifelink, or gives your creatures a lifelink, I should say. So the life you're going to lose is going to be offset.
See, how I first got my Shocklands when I came back to Magic was every Tuesday that we would get together, instead of spending a lot of money out to eat or whatever, I would take that $10 and buy a Shockland.
Well, how many times do people, and I've done it before, where you're in your shop and you're like going to leave, and like, I'll just buy 3 packs before I go out the door.
Yep.
And then you get nothing. I mean, sure, occasionally you hit a good card, but like plenty of times you don't get anything from those packs. Or you can just guarantee you could have grabbed a Shockland.
Yeah. Or I know a lot of people drink like 3 or 4 sodas when they're down at our local shop.
Sure.
Buy a bottle of water. Instead of spending $2 on a bottle of soda, buy a $1 bottle of water.
Every 6 weeks, buy your shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. For one change I would add now, Exotic Orchard in a 5-color deck doesn't come into play tap, and it's going to make you very often it's make you 5 colors of mana, but it's going to pretty regularly make you at least 2 or 3.
Yep.
And it doesn't come into play tapped, it gets it done. One land I do like in here is Cascading Cataracts.
Yes.
Because it gives you that Wooburg if you need to. And it's indestructible, which probably doesn't matter too much, but I think this is a perfect deck for Cataracts. So yeah, I mean, the lands is pretty basic, so we don't need to go through every individual one.
No.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump on it too much because he did say that it's a budget.
It's a budgety list. How about creatures? 34 creatures, is that right?
Yes.
They are all so powerful.
I love all of them.
And so weak at the same time.
Well, that's a lot. I like one of them.
You like one of them?
No, I like most of them. I don't like a few of them.
Which one? What don't you like, Max?
I do not like Wild Beastmaster.
Okay. I had a tough time because my Wasatora deck was functioning similar to this, where I wanted extra attack triggers. I also struggled making Wild Beastmaster work. Now this deck goes wider, so maybe that makes it work better. And is it a warrior?
No.
It is not. Okay.
It's a shaman. So my issue with it is, Wild Beastmaster is 2 and a green for a 1/1. Whenever it attacks, each other creature you control gets +X until end of turn, where X is Wild Beastmaster's power. Now, unless I completely missed it, you guys, and back me up if I'm wrong, I don't see any other big pump spells in this deck. Like, it would make sense if you're running something like Crater Hoof, or something that's going to at least give it +X, and then you swing with it to give everything else an additional +X.
I mean, I suppose there's a Cathar's Crusade,
but that's about it.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's going to be extremely lackluster when you want it to do more.
Right.
My big problem with the creature base is probably because of the mana base. Because a lot of these creatures require double color.
Yes.
Or one color and another color, but you're running a cheaper mana base, so it's harder for you to make sure that you're on those colors when you need them.
It's hard to be consistent.
Yes. Otherwise, I love all the creatures. I mean, their abilities are phenomenal. It's just like, I love it.
I like Martin Stromgold a lot. I've never had a chance to make him be good. I can never make him be good in my Varina and my Wasatora deck, but I respect trying to do it.
I'm also not a fan of Captain Lannery Storm in this deck. I get it's a 3-drop with haste and you're making a treasure token, but I think there could be better stuff with attack triggers that are going to do something better for you.
Yeah, it's a little, the ability is a little underwhelming, I think.
I have a deep dive.
Deep dive.
Okay, so my deep dive is Adriana, Captain of the Guard, from the second Conspiracy set. She's a 4/4 human knight for 3 in Boros, so it's a 5 mana, that double color, like you guys just said. It's going to be kind of hard to hit consistently. I see her as a finisher in this deck because she has melee, and other creatures you control have melee. And melee is a keyword that says whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked with a creature this turn.
That stacks.
It stacks.
Yep.
And now if you have a second combat phase,
your creatures are getting +6/+6.
Right. So
after having already came in with +3/+3 and probably destroyed a bunch of blockers, they're going to come back through again even stronger.
Yeah. So this would be one creature I would want to slot in. One, because I've never found a deck perfect for her. She doesn't work well in my Boros deck.
Yeah.
But you're running 34 creatures. You're always going to be able to at least give a couple things melee. That's awesome.
A couple of creatures I would probably pull out for things like that. Like I get Colossal Whale being something that attacks and removes creatures. That's a lot of mana, and it's double blue. Jedit Ohanan, yeah, he makes you a token, but it's trip green.
Right.
Udvar Hellkite is 8 mana, and there's not a... Is it the only dragon in this deck?
No, there's 3.
There's 3. Okay, so it'll make a few... I mean, there's a chance for it to making a few extra dragon tokens, but I would rather just have something like Adriana or something that's every time is probably going to be valuable, whereas some of these, I think it's going to take you a lot of mana to get them out, and they're not going to always generate value right away, and they're going to be tricky to cast in the first place. Removing those cards lowers your curve as well. So I think finding a few more efficient, smaller creatures and replacing a few of those is probably a good idea. All right. Anything else in creatures? Let's talk sorceries.
9 total. Do we want to read through them, or do we just want to go at them?
Let's just talk about the ones that we think could come out, or we don't like. And the first one I'll mention is in the margins special Explosive Vegetation. Particularly here where your commander costs 3 mana, I would much rather have a Nature's Lore or a Farseek that you can cast on turn 2 when you're not probably doing much else, and then get your commander out versus one you're casting after your commander's in play. That's not every game. Like sometimes you're going to draw it in turn 10, but...
For the Explosive Vegetation, you could just replace it. It's Cultivate with the other one that's completely...
Kodama's Reach.
Yeah, you could put the Kodama's Reach right there instead.
Yeah. Something that's just underneath it a little bit.
Yep. Because it's at 3 mana, still nets you 2 lands. Yes, they don't both come into play, but
many times that's your next land. If they come into play tapped off vegetation, well, many times that Cultivate gets you your land for next turn anyway. That you weren't going to have it. If they come into play tapped, and if you don't have a land in hand, it's kind of the same thing. So, no, I'm on board with that as well. There's no board wipes here.
No, none at all.
And so if you fall behind, we mentioned this with the first deck, it's really tough to even things up without a board wipe. And you don't need 10 of them, but maybe you need 2 of them. And you're in red. Blasphemous Act is a board wipe that almost always going to cost 1 mana. So that's at least I would find room for Blasphemous Act.
There is one I would like to add to this deck, and that's Disrupt Decorum. Goad all creatures you don't control.
Yeah.
So that just opens the board up for you to
swing.
For you to swing and get a couple extra attack triggers.
I like that one.
What about you, Chris?
I would replace Rampant Growth with that wonderful 2 mana one we were just talking about earlier.
Nature's Lore?
No, not Nature's Lore.
Farseek.
Because in a 5-color deck, you can go for any land.
True.
Right.
Aside from a forest. But obviously if you're casting, you already have the green source. So.
Correct. Yeah, in Nature's Lore, if you happen to be running a bunch of shocks or something like or duels that you're going to go get, then that's probably better because it comes into play untapped. But if you're not, if it's a budget land base, Farseek is going to fix more problems.
Yes.
I agree with that. How about Instance? There's a lot of board protection here, which I like to see.
I can't rip this apart aside from the Brainstorm.
Yeah.
The Brainstorm I could rip out. The rest of it I really like because of the fact that this is so creature heavy, he needs the protection for the creatures.
Yeah. I mean, Boros Charm is a board protection, and Double Strike on attack triggers or combat triggers is really, really useful.
Yep.
Make a Stand, Heroic Intervention, Root Bar Defenses also makes you a token in a deck that's making tokens. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little more removal, but I like all those protection spells.
On the lines of Make a Stand, Selfless Spirit would be a good inclusion. It doesn't have an attack trigger, but it is going to protect.
And you've got a lot of bodies, and that's all going to take those buffs from things like Adriana, and just like getting a second swing step in as well is useful. Yeah, I like it. How about enchantments?
This one I was kind of torn on because it seems like it's all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not like a focused section. Like most of this other stuff, it's focused on doing something. This seems like it wants to do everything at once.
Like for the most part, burgeoning, I think you need to have enough draw to care about burgeoning. I don't know if this deck does. I mean, yeah, it's going to ramp you. Like you're going to occasionally draw burgeoning on turn. You're going to have it in your opening hand with 4 lands, and you're going to like play burgeoning and then dump your lands, and it comes back to you with 5 mana up, and you're going to play your commander and then start doing stuff. But there's also times you're going to draw it in turn 4 when you've played out your lands and you're just drawing 1 a turn anyway, and that's going to do you no good. I think burgeoning's a good card. I just think this isn't maybe the deck for it.
No. Not at all. Goblin Bombardment was another one that kind of... I like it in this deck, but I don't at the same time.
It's a card that's great in this deck maybe when you're already in a position to win. I've made 19.
that I can get
I've made
behind.
19 creatures, and I can kill you with Goblin Bombardment, but I'm probably going to kill you anyway with
Combat damage.
With the combat damage.
Now, if this were a strictly Warriors deck or whatever that she creates,
Yep.
Then I can see Goblin Bombardment, because what you do is you straight out hose one player, turn to the next player and be like, I'm just going to sack them all and kill you.
Right. Yeah.
Any response to this.
Right.
And then end the game there.
But this is going to build less tokens because it's not
Yep.
all Warriors.
Yep.
The one I would like to see here, and I think we mentioned it before, is Path of Discovery.
That was on my list as well.
I mean, I just think that's an underplayed card in general. I think this
Agreed.
is a perfect deck for it. It's going to, get you some advantage. It's going to put tokens on stuff. It's going to trigger constantly. Maybe it's not in here because it triggers too much. I don't know, because eventually it's not.
It is hard to keep track of everything. I'll give it that much credit.
But Catherine's Crusade is in here, and that's awful to keep track of at times.
Right.
Yes. Trust me, I know.
I want to take out Rhystic Study
Really?
because I have a better one.
What's that?
I think Elemental Bond is going to be more consistent in this deck than Rhystic Study.
That's whenever a creature comes into play
With
that's
power 3 or greater.
greater.
I did the math. 75% of his creatures' base power is 3 or higher.
Yep.
That's not even factoring Anointed Procession or
Sure.
anything else. So that means pretty much any time you play a creature, you're drawing a card. Where Rhystic Study is your opponent's choice. Yeah, it's going to be great early game, but late game, when people want to pay that mana, they're going to pay the mana. I think Elemental Bond is something your opponents can't stop short of countering or removing it. And you have 34 creatures in your deck that are just, your creatures are now draw spells.
Your opponents are also never going to remove Elemental Bond, probably.
Not the first time.
There'll be much more threatening
people
things.
People try to take our Rhystic Study as soon as they see it.
Yeah.
And it's not even because it's super powerful, it's because it's annoying.
Well, it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
The combination isn't great. How about artifacts?
No Chromatic Lantern?
That was that's my first note.
Like over Ingot.
And Lantern isn't
Over
cheap.
Soul Ring.
Well,
in my opinion.
Lantern isn't cheap. It's $13 now or something ish. It just solves problems. Chromatic Lantern has won me games because it's let me cast spells that I couldn't otherwise cast because I hadn't drawn that third color mana. Like, I've won games with that mana rock, and that's not something you can say about a lot of mana rocks.
Yep. I personally do not like Soul Ring and 5-color decks, and I've built quite a few of them in my time. It just seems slow.
Right.
In this case, your commander does have a 2 colorless mana cost.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
And
with
majority
that.
of his creatures do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just prefer to have something that creates me mana
Sure.
of a color. Spectral Searchlight. I mean, yeah, it's 3 mana, but target player puts in, mana of whatever color of your choice.
Felwar Stone's going to make you...
Yes, Felwar Stone. There we go.
3 or
Even
4
better.
colors that you can use.
Yep.
So...
I also would like to see some sort of trample enabler in this deck.
Yeah.
Whether it's an artifact or an enchantment or something, just because...
Or just an overrun of some sort.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that. So that's your overall impression, Max. So what's your final impression here? Is you just like to see a little more trample?
More trample.
Okay. How about you, Chris?
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump to that.
No, that's...
I guess my overall impression is I'd like to see... I guess the creature base tuned a little bit.
That was mine as well.
Yep.
I would like to see it be a little more efficient, a little lower to the ground.
Yep. I'm not saying necessarily all the warriors or
for
soldiers or whatever. I like how it's a mix of with attack triggers, but dig deep. Look for some stuff that's like, you can find like 30-cent cards that probably do better than some of the your 8-drop Utvar Hellkite.
Yeah. And I play some big stompy dumb stuff that isn't the most efficient in some of my decks too. And that's fun to do. But I think there's a few too many in this deck, and you can still run a few fun big beater things while lowering the curve a little bit, making it a little bit easier to play. All right. Thank you very much for this deck. Thanks for everybody for supporting us on Patreon and sending our decks to us to do the little mini techs on. We appreciate it. Side note question.
Yes.
So, what would a world where Rift got banned look like?
No different than it is now.
So right.
I quit the game.
How does it change your deck building? How does it change the decks that you have Rift in it? Do you have any decks with Rift in it, Chris?
No. I don't play blue. Blue's for losers.
So does it change anything how you build defensively, how you would...
No.
Well, let's say you build a blue deck. So let's say you have a blue deck that has Rift in it and it gets banned. How do you change that? That card's coming out. Do you go with it like this? Like, well, I'm going to run Evacuations because that's the second best option. Or if you're in a deck that has other colors, like, well, I'm going to put another board wipe in. Or do you just say, hey, free slot, I'm putting in whatever I want?
It would become a free slot. Honestly, in my opinion, like especially if I don't play against Rift type of deal, because Rift is just, in my opinion, a board wipe.
Sure.
There's
I
nothing
count it
else
as
to
board
it
wipe as well.
Yep.
It's not,
Now,
but that's how I usually count it
in my
deck.
blue deck, it would. Geez, I'd probably look for something that does similar to that, to try and slot in.
So Max, it gets banned out of your Brago deck.
I'm selling out of the game. I'm
You're
done.
done. You quit. What do you replace it with in Brago? Another board wipe, just utility.
Another draw spell.
Okay. You're just like, I got enough board wipes, I'm good with it.
I have enough board wipes. I have enough stuff like that. And in Brago, like, I like it in Brago just because it keeps the board clear so I can do Brago things. And it enables a lock, so I just make my opponents get annoyed and quit. But there are other spells that can do that.
Sure.
And just draw is good. Draw is good, and I'm in blue and white, so I should be able to do that.
In looking through my decks, the Talrand one might be the one where I try to replace it with something similar. Maybe not evacuation, maybe something like that.
Aetherize or Aether
Yeah,
Spouts.
maybe not Aetherize. But like in the rest of my decks, looking at my Sphinx deck, I'm like, oh, I have enough board wipes. I'm only running that because I can, and it's so good. I'll just replace it with something else that's valuable. So aside from Talrand, which is mono blue where I don't have board wipes, any of my decks where I'm running it, because I do have it in Edric, I think, and is that all I've got for blue decks right now? I think.
But even
so.
in Edric, you probably never overload it.
No,
It's probably
not
just
very-
targeted.
Occasionally, I've gotten to that point where I can.
Yeah,
but,
where you could
like,
run a
not
boomerang
often.
or something
Right.
and they're in its place.
So I think, at least the way my decks are built, I would, aside from Talrand, where I would replace with evacuation, the rest of them, like, oh, free slot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it, as a free slot or a draw spell.
So I'm curious what anybody else out there thinks, because Rift is probably the most contentious card right now in Commander.
I think the biggest reason it is that is because it hits everything on the board aside from
There's
yours.
so many things about it. It hits everything. It's only one single blue mana to cast. It's instant speed. It can flex down and also be an unsummon. I mean, it's just, everything about it is disgusting and good. So
I wish it would target your own creatures, though. I ran into that when I was playing Max's Brago deck one day because I was going to bounce Torrential Gearhulk back to my hand to recast it. And Max like, that doesn't target yours. I'm like, oh, it doesn't. Oh.
I've learned that from too much experience.
So let us know. Reach out to us on the Twitter birds or Facebook or wherever, and tell us how your world would change if Cyclonic Rift was no longer part of it in EDH. That's going to be it for us. We'll be back next week talking about a thing. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.